Hello, girls. I do occasionally read young adult novels. I know that. I have amassed some of them, and this year I went through a few YA books I had in my collection, and I decided to do a wrap up for them because I never made a dedicated review to any one of them. It happens. And a reason I did read this book is because I tend to unhaul YA books, and the four books I'm about to talk to you today have been already unhauled, so I don't have any copies with me. So forgive me that, but then again, it will be all Greek to you. They were Greek copies. But I wanted to do a wrap up since the year is ending, and they were all quick reads and enjoyable reads. Some of them, some other were annoying reads that took long. We'll talk about each one of them, alright? First, I'll start with one of those series that I'm a bit on a fence if I want to continue or not, and this is the Morganville Vampires by Rachel Caine, because I kind of like this series, but not enough to be motivated to go out and find them. The book I've read this year was Midnight Alley, book 3 in the Morganville Vampires series. And yeah, I kind of enjoy the Morganville Vampires. It has 15 books in the series. If I want to describe the Morganville Vampires to somebody who is not familiar with the series, I would say that it's Buffy, but instead of Buffy going to Sunnydale, it is Willow. So the main idea is that we have Claire Danvers, who is a 16-year-old prodigy. She goes to college to a small Texas town called Morganville, and she's bullied by, this happens in book 1. I won't go much into the plot of book 3 because it will be a spoiler for those not familiar with the series. So she's bullied and she leaves the student dorm, and instead goes to live with three young adults. So there is Eve, who is a sort of hot topic goth, cool girl, and she's like a big sister to Claire. Then there is Michael, who owns the house they're in, and he hides some dark secrets. And there is Caine, who is angry because vampires killed his family. Oh, and I said vampires. Yes, this entire town is controlled by vampires who extend their protections to people, and there's a lot of intrigue and politics. And since our heroes have no superpowers, they have to deal with the vampires, so they have to politic. There is a lot of intrigue, there is a lot of suspense about what's going to happen, and a lot of close calls. So that's the interesting part, the politics and the close calls and the characters. They feel a lot like a family. They work well together, but they're very dysfunctional too. It happens. And in book 3, I liked how the plot starts to expand, and we learn some of the lore of the vampires and what's happening with Morganville, and there are a lot of hooks in there. This new character introduced here, who is a mad scholar vampire, was very interesting. It's a fun series to read. There's a good idea. There's a good core idea in this book. What it is like if you live in a city that is full of vampires, and how do you survive in that environment? And that's good. The local publisher has only published 3 novels of the series. So if I stumble upon the next one, I'm getting it. I'm not going to go into Amazon Book Depository and order the next one, because I enjoy the series, but I'm not that much of a fan of it, so I can wait for, stumbling on the next one, and if I don't stumble on the next one, I have no problem with that. But I do enjoy reading these books. If it sounds interesting to you, the idea of politicking with vampires, go get it, it's fun. Try the first book. One is called Glass Houses, because they live in a house owned by the Glass family, by Michael Glass. The next book I read, I don't think it's YA, I think it's more of middle grade or Harry Potter-like, and it's Shadowmancer by G.P. Taylor. And I have bought this book over 10 years ago, back in an era where there were very few fantasy books in my country, So stumbling upon any fantasy book, even if it sounded for children or young adults or something like that, I would get it if it was a good discount. And oh boy, I did the mistake of getting this book, Shadowmancer. And it's pretty old. It was published in 2005 by G.P. Taylor, who is a minister. And this book was... I had another book from G.P. Taylor, Tertius the Oracle, which is the second book of a duology that is between the Shadowmancer duology. Yeah, it's complicated already. So what's the idea of Shadowmancer? Shadowmancer is about a boy who lives somewhere in England, and there is this pastor there who is also a sorcerer, and he tries to capture the one true artifact that will make him all powerful. And then there is a boy who shipwrecks on the ship that is having this artifact called Rafa, who is sort of Egyptian and sort of Jesus-like. He has faith in God and can do miracles. And there is also an orphan Thomas that Faria has burned down his house and has his mother in a hospice because he's dying of illness. And there's Kate, who is, she's the Hermione of the team. She's tomboy. And, really, this book was not my cup of tea. I wouldn't say that I had a problem because it was very Christian, even though it was very Christian and it was a problem. But I'll get there. I just didn't like the writing of this book. It was definitely way it's down for me, and I had the trouble going through it. It was kind of cringy. There's a big problem when you have capital G God in your novel, because suddenly you have almighty presence appearing, and he's just like talking in riddles and telling stuff to the heroes because he works in mysterious ways, and comes off as a bit of a wonker because your almighty evil is ruining Earth, and you're just like, oh, cryptic, and leave the hero do that. That's a big no-no, really. Even if you're a Christian and you're certain that there is a big G God and you want to write about this, it's a tough call. Don't have God appear to your main character and help you in mysterious ways, because you both make that superior power feel a bit of an asshole, and also you destroy a lot of tension. And the way this book ends, the tension is not there. There's some thinly veiled Christian cosmology and mythology in this one, with Cherubim and Seraphim or something, were like angels. And I was never quite sure about the setting. There was a Tom Bombadil-like character in there who was just there because Bombadil was in Lord of the Rings and didn't quite fit the story. And I did not like this book at all. In fact, I unhauled Tertius along with this one because I was not submitting myself to another book by G.P. Taylor. This was definitely not for me. And it's not, if you go on Goodreads, it's got a 2.8 score, and a lot of people complain about the Christian propaganda in this book. I won't complain about the Christian propaganda, alright? I was aware of it, and it was not as bad as I expected from the reviews, but it was not working. The Christian cosmology was not quite working as, as literary. In a literary sense, not in a literal sense, alright? So definitely not for me. It was a core reading it, and I hated it. Shadowmancer is a big no-no. Now let's go for Blue is for Nightmares by Larie Faria Stolarz, who is also the author of Deadly Little Secret. This was not quite bad. It was actually quite interesting. I have bought it at the same time as I have bought Shadowmancer. It's a series of 4 books. Only book 1 has been published in Greek. No, it's not 4, it's 5 books. There is a 5th book too. But that was a cute little YA book. It was published again in 2003. So yeah, if you've read this book as a teenager, go get the job, alright? They're old YA books. And it's about a girl who is Wiccan. Her name is Stacy. She lives in a boarding school, and every night she has nightmares about somebody killing her roommate, who is her best friend. And she is actually peeing herself every time she has this nightmare. And there is this mystery of who is that person who is going to kill her roommate, because her dreams tend to come true, they're premonitions, and she's doing a lot of Wiccan spells that feel like Wiccan spells. Magic in this book is very subtle. So there is this mystery, this intrigue of who is the guilty party, and there are a lot of red herrings. The identity of the person is pretty much obvious early on if you've read, 5 or 10 thriller books. But there are a lot of red herrings, so it's interesting. The characters were quite good. They feel like teenagers, at least to me, who are an old man. There is a lot of tension because our protagonist Stacy is in love with her roommate's ex-boyfriend, who also reciprocates those feelings, and she's a bit of a pickle what to do, and he's also a suspect for being the person who will hurt her roommate, and her roommate is also talking on the phone with a mysterious stranger, and his identity is not known. So there is a lot of intrigue in this one. The pacing is good, it was fun, the way the supernatural element is used is nice, it's very interesting, and it's never taking over the plot. It's supplemental. It's actually, I tend to like mystery novels where a crime, a murder, something is going to happen, and the main character is trying to stop this. Another book that did that exceptionally well was Redbreast by UNESCO, which I found incredibly smart. The way it was done was not a supernatural element there, but here it is. Here there is the supernatural premonition of our witchy main character, and it adds quite a lot to the tension in this book and the mystery. It was a great, I won't say gimmick, it was a great idea, and I quite liked it. So yeah, it was fun. Again, I'm not the audience for this book, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah, maybe if I stumble upon the sequels, I would get them, because I think that the foundations are there, and this is the kind of book I would read, even today. And the way I see it, yes, the sequel of this book also is about stopping a murder before happening. I think that's the gimmick of those books, and yeah, I'm down for it. So finally, fourth YA book I read this year, and I doubt I'll have a fifth one to read, is The Replacement by Brenna, Yovanoff. Alright, that review is going to be a bit messy because the book was messy. So we have our main character Maki, who is a changeling. He replaced a baby, and his adopted family raised him. As a changeling, he is allergic to iron, so everything is poisoning him. And when a baby disappears from his town, which is something that is happening because the changelings are taking babies, he's trying to cope with it. Now he's a teenager, he's a bass player, he enjoys playing the bass, he is not a great student, his father is a pastor, and he's unable to enter the church because he's a changeling again, he's unable to go into hallowed ground, and he's trying to cope with it. His big sister is protecting him. This book really wants to be a Tim Burton movie with a soundtrack by My Chemical Romance. It was published in 2010, so it's a senior book compared to the other ones, but it was all over the fucking place. There was this idea of a band, an emo rock band of changelings playing shows, and they recruit him as a bassist, and a lot of interesting world building, but I felt that this book was bouncing around like an overactive emo kid on a sugar rush. I think there were way too many ideas used in this book, and it never quite felt that they stuck together. So it was a fun book, but a bit of all over the place. The plausibility of the main character surviving for 14 years in the world is like, doesn't make sense. He's getting poisoned and about to die in this book from iron poisoning, so there's no way he survived 14, alright? Or 16 or whatever he is. But yeah, the main arc was interesting. There were some great ideas. I think that it was good on the premise of it, and it's one-off. There are no sequels to it. So yeah, that you get it, you buy it, you read it. If I was an emo teenager, I would love this book, but I'm not. And this was my YA book wrap-up. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you soon. Thank you for watching.